Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to unpack something truly mind-bending from Eastern philosophy. We're diving deep into a massive classical Chinese text called the Zhongsheng Lu. And right out of the gate, its central thesis makes this incredibly bold claim. Your mind, right now, exactly as it is already a Buddha. But, what does that actually mean? Does it mean your everyday random thoughts about what to have for dinner are somehow enlightened? Well, we're going to break this text down step by step so we can really understand the deep mechanics of this ancient philosophy. Okay, let's quickly run through our agenda for today. First, what is mind is Buddha? Second, differentiating true and deluded mind. Third, ice and water are same. Fourth, Buddha in being's eyes. And finally, the principle of the reflected moon. All right, section 1. What is mind is Buddha? So we have to start by confronting this text's most startling assertion head-on. If you're thinking critically about this, you probably have an immediate objection. And the text actually anticipates our skepticism perfectly, posing a really vital question. If we're all Buddhas, exactly which mind are we talking about here? Because let's be real, we all have wandering thoughts, anxieties, and distractions. Is the mind that gets intensely frustrated in bumper-to-bumper traffic the Buddha? The author knows we need clarity on this right away. And the source gives us a very definitive answer. Buddhahood comes strictly from awakening to the true mind. It's definitely not your everyday, scattered, reactive thoughts. The Zhongjinglu is super careful to point out that if you take your temporary wandering thoughts, what it calls the deluded mind, and claim that is the Buddha, you are making a massive mistake. Awakening is entirely about recognizing the underlying truth of the mind, not the daily noise on the surface. Moving right along to section 2, differentiating true and deluded mind. Let's look at what this true mind actually looks like in practice, especially compared to the delusion we experience every single day. The deluded mind is purely reactive. The text points out that it only arises because of external objects. You see something, you react to it. If you actually take away those external stimuli, that deluded mind just vanishes. It literally has no substance of its own, it's just a temporary shadow. But the true mind, the text describes it absolutely beautifully. It says it's still, independent, and like a clear mirror suspended in space. It perfectly reflects all the 10,000 things of the world, but it never attaches to them. It doesn't move, it simply knows. Now, when you finally realize this true mind, when you stop identifying with all those temporary reactions and start identifying with the clear mirror itself, the text explains that you achieve what's known as the Dharmakaya. This is the truth body. It's the ultimate, unchanging reality of a Buddha. And the most incredible takeaway here is that the Dharmakaya isn't some distant, magical realm you have to travel to. It's identical to your own true mind. Think about that. The eternal truth of the universe is the exact same substance as the fundamental awareness looking through your eyes right now. This brings us to section 3, ice and water are same. Now this obviously brings up a huge philosophical hurdle. If we've got both a true mind and a deluded mind, how can ultimate reality be entirely non-dual? It's a completely logical question. If these two minds function so differently, one is a reactive, anxious mess, and the other is an eternal, perfect mirror, aren't they just two totally separate things? How can classical Eastern philosophy insist on one unified reality when we so clearly experience two totally different modes of consciousness? Well, the text addresses this with a really beautiful metaphor. The author explains that distinguishing between delusion and truth is kind of like pointing at a block of ice and calling it water. If you didn't understand how temperature worked, ice and water would look and act like completely different things, right? One is hard and rigid, the other is fluid and flowing. But their fundamental essence, their wet nature, remains exactly the same. Your deluded mind is simply the true mind frozen by ignorance and attachment. Your true mind is just that delusion melted back into its natural flowing state. They are literally the exact same substance, just experiencing different conditions. Let's dive into section 4, Buddha in being's eyes. Now that we've got a handle on the internal mechanism of the mind, how our frozen delusions share an essence with ultimate truth, let's look outward. Let's explore how this mind perceives the external world, specifically how people actually perceived the physical Buddha himself. The text recounts this fascinating, almost surreal scenario. You'd think looking at a physical person would yield one single objective reality, right? But according to the Zhongjinglu, different groups looked at the exact same Buddha at the exact same time and saw wildly different things. 500 Brahmins saw a man made of pure ash. Another group saw him as the color of red earth. 16 laymen saw his form as a black elephant's foot.
Others saw a towering, immeasurable silver or golden figure. How on earth is this possible?
The explanation here is absolutely fascinating. The text explicitly states that the environment changes according to karmic consciousness. The people who were seeing the Ashman or the elephant foot, they weren't hallucinating. Their subjective karma, their deeply held internal state, was actually altering their physical reality. The Buddhist true body, that Dharmakaya we just talked about, is fundamentally formless. It's like an empty space. So whatever physical form people saw was simply a reflection of their own minds projecting right onto that empty space. It's a brilliant illustration of the core teaching that reality is mind only.
And finally, Section 5, Principle of the Reflected Moon. This brings us perfectly to our cosmic conclusion. We're going to see how one ultimate truth fragments into billions of subjective realities. To explain how this formless truth becomes a localized, highly subjective reality for all of us, the Zongjing Lu uses the incredible analogy of a single moon shining on a river. Picture 3 boats out on the water at night. One stays perfectly still, one sails north, one sails south. If you're on the boat going north, the moon's reflection seems to travel north right alongside you. If you're going south, the moon goes south with you. Every single boat feels like the moon is moving specifically for them, interacting with their own personal journey. Then, the text completely scales this up, jumping from 3 boats to 1,000. If 1,000 boats go in 1,000 different directions, 1,000 moons will follow them. If millions of sentient beings look at the universe through their own karmic lenses, millions of subjective realities are created. But think about the actual moon up there in the sky. Does it ever duplicate? Does it actually move to follow a specific boat? No, of course not. It remains totally singular, perfectly still, and entirely unchanged. And this perfectly wraps up the core lesson of our explainer today. The true body, that ultimate truth of the Dharmakaya, is exactly like that single moon in the sky. It doesn't move, it doesn't change, and it has no specific physical form. The endless, shifting realities that we experience day to day, whether we're seeing a man of ash, a towering golden figure, or just dealing with the ordinary stress of our lives, those are just the endless reflections. Our individual, deluded minds are basically the rippling water on the river, constantly creating infinite, personalized illusions out of one single unified truth. But remember the ice in the water from earlier? Even the reflection is still made of the moon's light. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on long after this explainer is over. If everything you perceive, all the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly, is merely a reflection of your own internal karmic state acting upon the ultimate mirror of reality, what is your mind reflecting right now? Are you identifying with the rippling water, or are you ready to look up at the moon? Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the Zongjing Lu.